Hello again, everybody who watches me. I'm back! Welcome back to the JMC Reviews, and it's crazy to think, around this time this video is going up, I have been making videos and doing movie reviews here on YouTube for 5 years now. While my channel is still not huge, I still have a lot of fun doing this, and I hope to continue doing it for a long time, and appreciate everybody who continues to watch and subscribe. And like we do every year, the first review is going to be for a Charles Bronson movie, and for the past couple of years I've been doing a Death Wish movie as the first review, and we are now at the final entry in the Death Wish franchise. Death Wish 5, The Face of Death.
A new crime syndicate is taking over. One thing they didn't count on was an enemy who wouldn't back down. Charles Bronson is back.
If you go back through all my earlier reviews, you'll know I am a fucking die-hard Charles Bronson fan. He was just the epitome of grit and showing no mercy. His films, for the time they came out in, and even by today's standards, are still pretty fucking brutal and disturbing to watch. Showing innocent people being killed, raped, just all around brutalized in the worst ways possible. But Bronson always made sure the bad guys got their comeuppance. He kept making these movies well into his 70s, and while he does look old, you still believe that he could pull all this shit off. His reputation as the king of vigilante action movies started in 1974 with Death Wish. Made at a time where the crime spree in New York City, where the film took place, was at an all-time low. Death Wish reached a lot of people, was a big catharsis for what was going on. The second film was definitely more of a disturbing exploitation film than a gritty, realistic drama. And the third film just went all over the top, but was still a blast to watch, particularly if you were a Stallone or Schwarzenegger fan. The fourth Death Wish was still over the top, but was a bit of a return to form, having a message in it and taking its subject matter a bit more seriously. And it had a very depressing but very well executed cliffhanger ending.
Hold it, Kersey. God damn it, I'll shoot! Do whatever you have to.
7 years later, in 1994, now in his early 70s, Charles Bronson returned once again to play Paul Kersey, and Death Wish 5 does not acknowledge anything that happened in the fourth film, but they do establish that Paul Kersey at this point is living under a new identity in the Witness Protection Program.
I got just 2 words to say about that. Bullshit!
Which from a writing standpoint is a half-decent action movie reason as to why he's still free and not in jail. I mean, he did wipe out 2 or 3 different cartels, and he was collecting information, so who knows, maybe...
Sure. Why not?
But from there, Death Wish 5 just becomes easily the worst film in the Death Wish franchise. I admit the sequels were not up to the same quality as the first film, but even as dumb and over the top as they could get with the latter sequels, they were still an awesome blast to watch. They were fun, they gave you what you wanted. Death Wish 5, I think the villain Lord Farquaad from Shrek can sum it up best.
Oh, it's disgusting! Guards! Guards! I order you to get them out of my sight! No! Get them! Get them!
Death Wish 5, The Face of Death is just a very disappointing, unappealing, boring film.
Our resident retard.
This whole project feels like it was made by people who just didn't care, and those who did just didn't have the talent to make it work.
So bad. So bad.
To sum up the story pretty quickly, Paul Kersey, now living under the new name Paul Stewart, is working as an architect professor while dating a hot, young fashion designer with a daughter. You think this motherfucker would know better than to get involved with a woman and her kid at this point.
You stupid cunt.
Kersey's new, soon-to-be-dead girlfriend, Olivia, played by Leslie Ann Down, is the ex-wife of a powerful crime boss, Tommy O'Shea, played by Michael Parks, which is funny because Michael Parks in the late 60s starred on a show called Then Came Bronson, and now he's acting with Charles Bronson. Moving on. O'Shea shakes down or controls just about every business in the city, including his ex-wife's fashion design business, and they have a bitter custody battle going on for their daughter, Chelsea, played by Erica Fairchild.
It's not your daughter anymore. A judge took her away from you, remember?
After O'Shea roughs Olivia up, leaving bruises, Paul convinces Olivia to go to the DA to testify against O'Shea. Finding this out, O'Shea sends his main enforcer, Freddie Flakes, a gangster who gets his nickname from the fact that he has bad dandruff. Yeah, that sounds like something a violent criminal would totally be okay with people calling him.
I've always been a fan of yours, Miss Regent.
Freddie apparently has a thing for using disguises to get around, his favorite apparently being a white dress and a red wig.
Look at that beautiful face! I'm gonna have to take it away from you!
And he brutally beats and smashes Olivia's face into a mirror, all the while crying like a bitch. I guess he's really getting into character.
It's a bad idea. So bad!
Man, SJWs have a field day if this film came out today.
The next time, your daughter won't have a mother!
Yeah, the scene where Freddie Flakes attacks Olivia is just weird, out of nowhere. I get that they're trying to have a freaky bad guy, but it just causes you to scratch your head more than be afraid.
Oh, goddamn dandruff! I'm sorry.
Olivia is so bashed up that she has to spend about 20 minutes of the film wrapped in bandages. Paul is told that she will never look the same again.
The face will never be the same.
Really playing up that she's horribly disfigured, and when he takes her home from the hospital and we see what she looks like, she still looks like Leslie Ann Down. I mean, yeah, she's got some nasty cuts, but the way they described it, I was kind of expecting the doctors from the Eye of the Beholder episode from the Twilight Zone.
Look at my face, Paul. Look at my face.
This is your idea of disfigurement? A few nicks on the face? I've had cuts on my leg worse than that. It seems like a case of they want to show the woman getting beat up, but they don't want to disfigure her too much because they still want her to be hot.
I'm both frightened and aroused.
O'Shea sends Freddie Flakes and two of his main goons to take out Paul and Olivia. Paul manages to dodge them because like stormtroopers and droids are fucking marksmen compared to these retards. Olivia ends up getting killed, and I guess this is meant to be a sad moment, but we never really got to know her that well before she died, which is a problem with just about every other character in the film, particularly the daughter.
I don't want to go, Paul. I want to stay with you.
What's happening here?
After Olivia's dead, O'Shea takes Chelsea back after a brief scene where Bronson gets a good hit in, and then he gets knocked the fuck down, which, knowing this is Charles Bronson, is just stupid and embarrassing and doesn't really serve a point other than showing us that at age 71, he had a nice ass.
Great ass!
O'Shea takes over Olivia's fashion business and turns it into a strip club with some of the weirdest fucking lingerie you will ever see. While this is going on, Paul, who every time he talked to his DA friend who set him up in the witness protection program, Brian Hoyle, played by the only other actor besides Charles Bronson who actually seems like he's trying, Saul Rubinek. Saul Rubinek is a really good actor, and it's a shame because, like everybody else, he's not really given much to work with, but he makes the best of it as he can.
The mayor's on a real rampage about this vigilante thing.
First McConaughey and then Flex. He's going down the list. You make sure O'Shea is covered, all right?
Out of all the forced emotional moments that leave no real impact, his final scene with Charles Bronson is the only one that really feels like it has anything to it, even though that is his final scene and he never fucking comes back. Anyways, I was saying, after getting in touch with Hoyle, Kersey discovers that the reason O'Shea and his men kept knowing his and Olivia's every move is because they have an inside man on the force, Lieutenant Hector Vasquez, played by Miguel Sandoval, who tries to kill Kersey, but
I didn't think it would be this easy, Kersey. Neither did I.
one of the biggest things with this film that I find to be a problem is you never really feel any suspense. At this point, you know Kersey is going to win in the end, and none of the bad guys in this movie seem like a legitimate threat. Yes, they have a dandruff-flaking transvestite who smashes women's faces into mirrors, but even then, it just feels like people who are trying to act tough as opposed to people who are tough. And yes, a big part of an action movie is having idiot goons who don't know who they're up against, but it's established Vasquez knows who Kersey is. He knows that he was the New York vigilante, and yet he was so fucking stupid in going after him.
Are you an idiot? You're calling me an idiot? I'm calling you an idiot!
Knowing that Kersey sees Chelsea as a surrogate daughter, O'Shea uses her as bait to lure Kersey to him.
Where's the girl?
We get a shootout in a clothes factory that, I'll give it this, has some pretty decent electrical explosions. But it's ruined again by the over-the-top bad guys and a really unbelievably stupid scene where Kersey gets a guy at gunpoint to stand still and get wrapped in plastic.
Super fine.
Paul takes out the last of the goons in a admittedly pretty fun death where the guy's head gets crushed and his brains get shredded into a bag.
Jesus Christ!
Then O'Shea and Kersey have their little face-off. Michael Parks sounds like he's 5 seconds away from passing out.
Whatever you want, whatever you need.
Kersey knocks him into a tub of acid.
You need a bath.
And even that, which should be awesome, is extremely underwhelming because he's in and Kersey's out, all within a span of 15 seconds or less.
Ah, fuck it, dude. Let's go bowling.
And I guess someone heard the gunshots because the police show up. Kersey has one final word with a Lieutenant King, played by Kenneth Walsh.
What are you gonna do about me?
Don't worry, I'll take care of it.
Girl's outside, she's safe.
Before walking off and ending pretty abruptly and awkwardly on a freeze frame.
Hey, Lieutenant, if you need any help, give me a call.
That'll be enough of that shit.
The biggest problems with Death Wish 5 are it doesn't feel like anybody is really trying at this point.
You
Guns make you nervous?
Guns have their uses. Idiots with guns make me nervous.
Everything in this film feels slow, tired, and looks rather drummy. This movie is 96 minutes. You want to know how long it is before Paul Kersey kills his first criminal? 51 minutes.
That's fucking crazy, man.
And how does he kill this particular thug? By pouring cyanide on the dude's cannoli and then watching him puff up and choke to death. Yeah, because that's what we go into the Death Wish movies for, to see a guy slowly choke to death.
You got a problem?
This film makes me want to grovel for the wieldy Magnum. The scene where he takes out Freddy Flakes is a little more action-packed, but it is so ridiculous you will not believe what you're seeing. Paul Kersey takes out this dandruff-flaking transvestite hitman with a remote control soccer ball.
So what, he needs batteries? What size? Where's the Radio Shack?
I'm gonna take care of your dandruff problem for you.
And because I believe in giving shout-outs to enjoyably bad moments, there is a really fun death where Freddy Flakes runs over an informant working with the cops by hitting the guy with his car and sending him upwards into the air about 10 feet. But the worst thing in this film, and it breaks my heart to say this, is Michael Parks as Tommy O'Shea.
Your company. That's our problem. Love.
Michael Parks was a really good fucking actor. He played so many memorable characters, and he could play genuinely terrifying villains. But as Tommy O'Shea, he spends this whole film acting goofy and, no other way to put it, dorky. He just comes off like the dorkiest fucking villain I've ever seen in an action film. He comes off more like a snotty drama theater kid than an actual crime boss who has the power to wipe out anyone in his path.
That's my daughter, sitting with a geek.
Bullshit, so are you! Yeah, man, I make you the head nigga and you talk to me like that? Fuck you!
And he says all of his lines like he didn't get an ounce of sleep the night before and he's 5 seconds away from passing out.
Read it and weep.
She's coming with me.
Chicky choked to death on a cannoli. Do you not remember?
My God! Big tub of guts.
You know this character's gonna be bad when one of his first scenes is him calling Charles Bronson a geek.
Sitting with a geek.
And at this point, I guess they decided that the rapes had run their course, because this is the only Death Wish film that doesn't feature any rape or attempted rape. But they do feature a couple of titties here and there. I guess you can give the director this. He knows how to shoot beautiful women. Speaking of which, and this could maybe account for how the film came out the way it did, this film had a troubled production in terms of creativity. The previous Death Wish sequels had all been produced by Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus, and released through their company, the Cannon Group. However, by this point, Cannon Films had to file for bankruptcy, and Golan and Globus had a personal falling out, so Menahem Golan created his new production company, 21st Century Film Corporation. And through this new company, he hoped that Death Wish 5 would be a big moneymaker. Golan was originally going to direct, but was busy directing Crime and Punishment over in Russia, a film that, according to what I've been able to find, was not released until 2002, so yeah. Originally, Steve Carver, who had experience in action films, was brought on to direct, and for whatever reasons, at the last minute, was replaced with Alan Goldstein, who had a background primarily in drama. Even Goldstein was surprised that he was brought on to direct. Goldstein would later go on to direct 2001: A Space Travesty, as well as Snake Man with Stephen Baldwin.
That's all I need!
The movie was produced by Damian Lee, whose only real credit before this was directing and producing Abraxas, Guardian of the Universe with Jesse Ventura.
Stop! Could you please provide me with ground transportation?
Michael Winner was apparently free to return as director to this franchise, but no one approached him. After the third film, it seems like Bronson had had enough of him, and it seemed like that was the case here because Charles Bronson and Menahem Golan, for unknown reasons, were not on speaking terms during filming. The movie was budgeted at $5 million, according to what I found, and grossed, only $1.7 million.
So bad. So bad.
After their strained professional relationship, Menahem Golan was thinking of doing a 6th Death Wish film without Charles Bronson, and was planning to call it Death Wish 6, The New Vigilante.
That's the stupidest thing I ever heard of.
But 21st Century, just like canned films, had to file for bankruptcy, and thankfully, it was never made. Although, sadly, Death Wish 5 would be the final film in this iconic action franchise. And the final theatrical film to star Charles Bronson before he finished out his career in television. With awful reviews, a horrible box office, and just a whole cast of underwhelming actors. Death Wish 5, The Face of Death, is not only the worst entry in the Death Wish franchise, it's one of the genuinely worst films that Charles Bronson has ever made. And I still think he played Paul Kersey reasonably well. Bronson had been playing this character for 20 years, he knew him inside and out, but not even his acting could save a really shitty script.
You know, sometimes the law works.
And sometimes it doesn't.
Do I recommend Death Wish 5? Hell no. It's the last entry in the Death Wish franchise, and unless you're a super die-hard Charles Bronson fan, I say stay the fuck away from this movie. On the 10-star scale, I give it a 2.3. On the 5-star scale, half a star. Hope you enjoyed the first JMC review of 2020. Hope you enjoyed my shave. I wanted to highlight my mustache because Bronson. Hope you enjoy the rest of the reviews I have to give this year, and I will see you all again soon. Happy 5-year anniversary.
Say shit.
Shit.
There you go.